So, folks, it's time for me to talk about one of the perpetual bugbears in the room, mainstream media. And I gotta be honest, I am typically pretty dissatisfied with the mainstream media. Of course, it's why I do this show. Their failures, I guess, make it possible for me to do what I do, but at the same time, man, I wish they were better at doing what they do. And I gotta be honest, this New York Times piece broke me. This just straight up broke me. Okay? But the New York Times here does the interview. What does Tucker Carlson really believe? I went to Maine to find out. And of course, it's a gigantic, very long, in depth interview that very much platforms and sane washes Tucker Carlson. It's about 2 hours long, and I thought, maybe it'd be fun to dive into this sometime, but not today, because I, frankly, am not super interested in sitting down and watching 2 hours of Tucker Carlson from the New York Times. Because I see that headline and that sell on what this entire article and interview is going to be about, and I think to myself, why on earth would you need to go to Maine to figure out who Tucker Carlson is? He has a decades-long career in media talking about what he believes. It's not a secret, guys. I don't know. It's not a secret at all. And I wish that this problem was confined to Tucker Carlson, but it's not. And I wish this problem was confined to the New York Times, but it's not. You've got all kinds of different mainstream outlets sane washing these same people, whether it's Barry Weiss now doing a fluff piece on a white nationalist MMA fighter.
We know among those to show up were members of white nationalist group Active Club.
Going to a disaster relief is directly helping our people.
You go in to help white people.
Yeah.
Robert Rundo co-founded Active Club in 2020 as a place for disgruntled young white men to work out together while sharing their ideology. With nearly 90 chapters, it's been described by watchdogs as one of the country's fastest-growing white supremacist networks that are anti-Semitic, anti-immigrant, and anti-democracy.
And so we here at 60 Minutes gave them a colossal fluff piece talking about how great they are. Now, granted, 60 Minutes isn't talking about how great they are, but if you are doing a piece about a virulent white supremacist organization, you don't bring them on and then just go oh yeah, you're just going in to help people. Blur the faces of these white nationalists. You don't blur their racist, Nazi tattoos. And it's just very clear to me that mainstream news is just steadily failing. Another thing that's just been getting in my craw recently, the puff pieces the New York Times has been running about, look, the last days of Butter Ridge, the Watsons were dairy farmers for generations, the rhythms of their lives defined by their cows until this spring. And it's just yeah, Trump voters got what they voted for. It turns out they really fucking hate what they voted for. And our sympathy is not there. You voted for the guy who was running on ethnically purging the country. You knew exactly the kind of man he was. It wasn't a surprise. He was the president before, and he tried to do a bunch of bad shit. You played a stupid game and you won a stupid prize. Good job. But the fact that the mainstream media looks at these stories and is oh man, look at these relatable, hard working class folks who are now being put out of a job by the Trump administration. Look at how sympathetic they are. And it's just nah, dog, these people are not sympathetic. These are business owners who voted in what they thought was their best interest. And it turns out what they thought was in their best interest bankrupted them, because the guy that they put in power to like give them tax breaks fucked everything up because he's an 80-year-old man with dementia and a white nationalist who's like destroying their labor base, which, you know what, would have been obvious if you had actually listened to or paid any attention to all of the things he's ever said and done as a political figure. It, like, the fact that the New York Times is sane washing these people and sane washing, you know, like, I don't know, like, I have another piece here that I was going to cover like a couple weeks ago, but like the anti-women's voting movement, because again, there are people in this country who are actively agitating for women to lose the right to vote. And they're Republicans, by the way. The New York Times has just been sane washing all of these vile people who want you to live in a world that is fundamentally less free. Yeah, Ginny Thomas is part of that. Wife of Clarence Thomas. The what? What is sane washing? Sane washing is running articles and stories to make patently insane or nonsensical political positions have the veneer of respectability. It's like if the local news took the local tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist who thinks that aliens constructed the pyramids and put them on like the local evening news to talk about how he's actually just a hardworking family man with some, you know, misunderstood ideas. It is basically laundering the optics. I mean, nowhere is this more apparent than like when you see how the press covers Donald Trump. Donald Trump has benefited from mainstream media sane washing him for years. Years. I mean, look at this is from was this from earlier today? Yeah, this is from earlier today. And will you actually have paid, like, will you have actually read anything in the mainstream news today or seen anything in the mainstream news today that makes him sound like he actually sounds like? I'm going to play just this clip for you guys.
In my opinion, anybody running for president or vice president should take a cognitive test. And no president has ever taken one except me. I've taken 3 of them, and I've aced each one. 1 in the first administration, 2 over here. And whenever they get a little sassy, like, does he still have it? Does he still have what it takes? I say, all right, I'll take another one. And they are hard. There are many people in this room I know that are smart. They're not going to ace them. There are many people standing back there, the fake news media. I'd like to have them. You know, the first question is very easy, and they always show the first question is, you have a lion, a bear, an alligator, and what's another good? A squirrel, okay? Which is the squirrel? So they show that question, and then the first 4 or 5 questions they get a little more difficult. By the time you get to the middle, they're tough. By the time you get to the end, I don't want to be insulting, but there won't be, I'm not going to do what Gavin Newsom said. You saw him? He said, everybody in here is stupid, and he's stupid. I think it was the worst political interview I've ever seen. He said, in my opinion.
That is Donald Trump, yet again, bragging about being so mentally in decline that he has been given 3 different dementia tests. Yeah, I mean, this isn't the are you concussed test. This is your, like, are you dementia-addled? Yeah, this isn't an old clip, guys. He's been saying this over and over and over again. He said it like 4 or 5 times in like public appearances over the last few days. And I also just want to throw out there, I think he's saying it more and more because he's been given another dementia test. And he's bragging about it because they're clearly telling him this is a serious cognitive test. Because none of them want to tell him that, like, they're worried his brain is gone. And they aren't, like, he's then going and bragging about it to the public. It's insane. It's insane.
Their cognitive function tests. Can someone let him know?
I mean, yeah, please. For the love of God. He's saying the same joke over and over again because he can't remember he said it. I mean, kind of, yeah. That's like exactly it. His brain is mush, but the entirety of the mainstream media press don't talk about him like that. They don't even watch something obviously bonkers insane and call it out for what it is. This man, I've been saying for over a year, his brain is just gone, guys. Feels like he's in a very tightly controlled information bubble. Well, kind of what I'm trying to get at here is that a lot of us are, especially if you're just relying on mainstream media, right? And I want to use Tucker Carlson here as a vehicle for what I'm talking about. Because the New York Times here is like, well, what does Tucker Carlson believe? We had to fly someone out to Maine to ask him a bunch of questions. And it's like, one, you don't have to do that because Tucker Carlson tells you who he is through his work, right? To the extent that Tucker Carlson believes anything true, you will find it in what he actually does in his work. I also don't think that Tucker Carlson is someone you can take at face value when it comes to, mainstream press approaching him to give him a bigger platform, to make him seem more like a normal conservative. And I want you all to know, Tucker Carlson is not a normal conservative. He is not just a regular guy, as much as he might like to make you think he is. And we're going to talk about that in detail.
What's the over-under that he's too soupy to serve and they weekend at Bernie's his third campaign while he wanders the ballroom?
I genuinely don't think so. I like his physical health makes me doubt he's actually going to make it into any kind of like third term physically. But also I don't think he's going to have the ability to make public appearances in a few years. Maybe that will overlap with the 2028 election. Maybe it won't. I don't know. They're going to be afraid to put him in front of people at some point. Honestly, he kind of is a normal conservative. Normal conservatives are that bad now. Yeah, but the point is, the New York Times, the mainstream media, they don't treat conservatives that way. Right? We're living in an era where like the Supreme Court of the United States of America just brought back Jim Crow, just brought back the ability for conservative politicians to racially gerrymander. And they are chomping at the bit to use that because the conservative movement has fostered that kind of ideology, has fostered that racism at the heart of the party, that white supremacy, right? But mainstream media rarely touches on that topic and instead wants to bring back this idea that everything is just status quo like it was in the 90s. And it's just not that anymore, And I want to demonstrate that with Tucker Carlson. All right. Here's a post that Tucker Carlson posted over on X. This was back in mid-March. Okay. Let's just take a quick look at it. All right.
Winston Churchill, who I know we're required to deify, presided over the imprisonment of his opposition party during the entire length of the war, and their families and their wives. They were rotting in prison away from their little kids, in some cases their infants. And their crime was being the opposition party and being disloyal and unpatriotic. They weren't. The opposition party was led by a First World War hero who fought not just as, a pilot in the sky, but and in the trenches, like one of the great war heroes, former member of parliament the country ever produced. And he and his wife and his compatriots and their wives were interned without charges by Winston Churchill for the duration of the war. And that happened in Britain, which is like much more humane than a lot of places. FDR interned the Japanese, including American citizens. That stuff happens during war. And so I think we should be on guard. Winston Churchill.
Now, what's odd about this clip that, Tucker Carlson throws up on, again, this is from the official Tucker Carlson network, account. The picture that he shows, the man that he doesn't name here, is a man named Oswald Mosley. Now, if you know anything about British politics, specifically British politics around World War II, then you would understand that Oswald Mosley was the leader and founder of the British Union of Fascists. Specifically, he was the fascist leader in Britain during World War II. And, like, when we say he was Nazi adjacent, we mean, like, he also believed conspiracy theories about the Jews. He made that part of the platform of the party. And also, they wanted to put people in political uniform on the street in order to, put their fascist movement more visibly in front of the public. They were called the Black Shirts, actually. Yeah, the reason that he was jailed was because the British government suspected that Oswald Mosley was working alongside the actual Nazis to create what they called a fifth column, essentially like a force that could form kind of an insurrection against the British government, as the Nazis were firebombing London. I mean, what Tucker Carlson is doing here is just not subtle. He is specifically showing a fascist and being like, well, isn't it bad that they kept him away from his wife and infant? Think of it. Think of the injustice. And, like, Tucker Carlson absolutely knows who Oswald Mosley is. This isn't a mistake. They didn't just accidentally whoopsie-daisy show the leader of the British Union of Fascists in this video, and, like, Tucker Carlson didn't actually intend to talk about him. And, like, look, there are a lot of reasons to criticize Winston Churchill, but putting the fascist leader inside of, the United Kingdom in prison, that's not something to criticize Winston Churchill on. I would say you should maybe criticize him more for, his acts of mass murder, like the famines in India, for example. But Oswald Mosley, not a bad, not the bad thing he did. But you know what? Maybe that was a one-off. Maybe he did somehow whoopsie-daisy. And I don't want to take a past Tucker Carlson, so we're looking at stuff he's done more recently, Who is Tucker Carlson? What does he believe? Of course, we could only figure it out by going to Maine and sending a reporter out there.
Tucker also doesn't mention Mosley was kept with his wife and infant at Holloway, a women's prison. Genuine case of a man in a women's prison lol.
Whoa. When will the retroactive transphobia kick in? But also, you know what? Let's take a look at one of his other videos from relatively recently. This one's from about a month ago. It has 3.5 million views on YouTube. And in this, Tucker Carlson does another thing that I think is pretty indicative of what he does, which is, one, platform fascists with deeply conservative views, and also platform pseudoscientists, because destroying the information ecosystem always benefits fascists. Tucker Carlson does both of these things. And I'm going to direct you guys to his interview with a man named Professor Jiang. And we're going to get a little bit more into who Professor Jiang is, of course, but I think we're going to take a look at a section towards the end of their interview. We're not going to watch the entire thing. It's over an hour long. But let's take a quick look here.
It does, and I've really tried to keep, speculation to a minimum. You always want to believe that
Tucker
people's
Carlson
motives are
has
transparent.
invented the Mosley hardness scale.
They state why they're doing what they're doing. But of course, you can never know what's inside a man, right? Even in yourself, it's hard to.
Phrasing, sir. Phrasing.
Of course.
Know your own motives very often. So I think that's a wise take. What happens to North America United States, and I do want to include Mexico and Canada. We don't think a lot about those countries, but they're both massive land masses and they have big populations and they're our neighbors. And so if the world is reorienting, I think you need to think in terms of continents rather than just nation states. What does that look like in 3 or 4 years?
Right. So from a geopolitical perspective, if America is forced to retreat back into the Western Hemisphere, it needs to worry about resources. And so it is in the best interest of America to eventually take over and colonize both Canada and Mexico.
Yes.
Mexico for its labor supply, Canada for its resources. Canada's probably the wealthiest country in the world.
I know.
And so from a geopolitical perspective, if the world is retreating into self-sufficiency, if there's mercantilism, if there's trade barriers, then America...
Okay, so I watched through this and I hit the point where this guy throws out the word mercantilism, clearly not understanding or he's not using it right. I can tell you guys that much. But also, like, this is one of the reasons pseudoscience is so dangerous when it comes to, becoming more of a practical application, right? Like, Tucker Carlson is having this guy on and validating his pseudoscientific ideas about, which we're going to get into in a moment, but table that for now. He validates the pseudoscientific ideas and then sets this guy up as like, well, what do you think is going to happen to the West? And this guy's just like, well, the West will retreat inward and the United States will just take over anything in its sphere of influence. And like, I just want to, and then he throws out mercantilism. And I just want you all to understand, mercantilism is not what he's describing. That's not what that means. Like, mercantilism comes out of a period in which the idea of wealth and like power is that you need colonies, and the colonies that you found then extract natural resources that are brought back to the motherland to be like refashioned into products. In other words, to be manufactured. So colonies exist for resource extraction. The resources are sent back to the mainland manufactures things, and those things build up wealth and value within your system. What he's describing isn't mercantilism, it's just isolationism. It's just the empire, instead of using soft power, embracing hard power. No soft power, only hard power. And then using its extractive abilities internally to itself. What he's describing is effectively the United States devolving into a fascist empire. And like, that's a stupid, backwards way of any kind of geopolitical analysis whatsoever. We live in an interconnected world. That isn't going to stop being the case any more than like this would be like saying, well, you see, North Korea is engaged in mercantilism. No, they're not. They're engaged in capitalism. We live in a global capitalist system. You don't like just turn back the dial on that because you're isolationist. Like, it's not. It's very, very silly. But I wanted to skip ahead a little bit here to talk about this. Here we go. And just towards the end of this.
It's just interesting because, like, I'm not defending the whites. I am white, of course, but, white people have done a lot of bad things, just like people do a lot of bad things. But in general, people like to go on, as you just noted, vacation in white countries because they're pretty nice. So I think you'd have to say, if you took the emotion out of it and just, like, looked at it,
Professor,
net.
I slap my kids at the pool. Jiang is getting tiresome.
Yeah. I also have a large segment planned for Professor Jiang at some point.
Whites have been, pretty big addition to the world, invented a lot of stuff, created a lot of beauty, created places people like to go on vacation, which really is a good test. So,
like, this is what Tucker Carlson does. He's like, This is what he does. He's a white nationalist. I'm just gonna back that up and repeat it again.
Pretty big addition to the world. Invented a lot of stuff. People like to go on, as you just noted, vacation in white countries because they're pretty nice. So I think you'd have to say, if you took the emotion out of it and just like looked at it net, whites have been, pretty big addition to the world. Invented a lot of stuff, created a lot of beauty, created places people like to go on vacation, which really is a good test. So,
like, what's really interesting here is that there's no like white country. Like, that's not a thing. Using this like arbitrary social role that we have constructed, race, as a way to evaluate human achievement or put human achievement in different categories, that's racist in and of itself. It wasn't until like the 1970s that Italians were widely considered white. Is Italy a white country? Is the Irish? Is Ireland considered a white country by Tucker Carlson? Iran? Is Iran considered a white country? The thing is, who does actually qualify as white has changed immensely over the last, several centuries. And I want to remind folks that this type of racial categorization along, white, black, etc., it's also largely the product of pseudoscience. So I want you just all to recognize this here, that Tucker Carlson is categorizing this already in an arbitrary bullshit way in order to basically have the statement, white people have invented stuff and made a lot of beauty, and most people like to vacation in white countries. But that doesn't mean anything. What he's trying to do here is talk about an idea of whiteness that is universal, that is worldwide, and that simply doesn't exist. Maybe the best way to describe this is that in America, racists who talk about the whites, they talk about Europe being white, right? But if you actually go to Europe and you start talking about different ethnic groups, they don't consider one another white in the same way Americans talk about Europe being white. You will hear incredibly racist stuff about the Poles. You will hear incredibly awful shit about the Romanians or the Romani. You hear so much because Europe is ethnically diverse. This fiction that Tucker Carlson routinely spreads on his show is white nationalism.
Why would you destroy all that?
Look, so in my school, I teach great books. I teach Western civilization. I teach Homer, the Iliad, the Odyssey. I teach Plato, the Republic. I teach Dante, the Divine Comedy. I teach the Bible. And my students love it because Western civilization, it's just not about people being white. It's really about what it means to be human.
Right.
And what it means to be spiritual and to have connections with the divine. So it's unfortunate that just when the world needs Western civilization the most, the West decides to destroy its own civilization.
But also, other cultures and other parts of the world also teach those things. Those concepts are not unique to Europe or European literature. And also, I want to point out again, the Bible is not European literature. Whatever. I only have an English degree. What do I know?
I mean, yes. Homer, Dante, Plato, Shakespeare, the Bible, these are timeless classics that speak to every human. I know because I teach in China to Chinese students who have absolutely no exposure to Western culture, yet they fall in love with Plato, Dante, Homer, and Shakespeare. And why is that? And it's because there is eternal truth embedded in their words. And so universities, Western universities, ought to be the places.
I love, can I just say, again, as someone who went and got a degree in English literature, I do love the idea that Shakespeare is held up as like a timeless classic that speaks to the fundamental spirituality of like the human race. And like, then you crack open like any Shakespeare play and there are like 100 dick jokes fall out on you, just flopping around in your face. Like it's crazy to me.
The fortresses that are the greatest defenders of Western civilization. But if you go again to these elite universities, Yale, Harvard, they are the most critical of Western civilization. They don't.
Yeah, because critical thinking is good. You should criticize things. You should have different and more nuanced understandings of things, even the timeless classics. Like, I'm sorry, but like the idea that like Shakespeare was like more than a man and beyond criticism, like that's just dog shit. That's just a dog shit opinion. These are all books that were written by people, and people are fallible and weird little guys. God.
Teach Homer and Dante and Plato. And it's like, if you don't teach these classics, what's the purpose of university? I always thought the university was the heart and center of civilization, right? It's like what monasteries were in the medieval age.
What? No. Look, can't confirm. No, actually.
I thought these professors, they would dedicate their lives to promoting the classics, but instead they now promote complete
okay. Oh God. Okay. So I know this is not the point, but that is absolutely not how monasteries functioned in medieval times. Like at all. They weren't promoting the classics. Like the classics were just the syllabus. Like that was what you taught to anyone who is looking to learn things.
As a former classics nerd, asterisk jokes are a timeless classic. Pompeii is full of asterisk jokes.
True. I mean, look, nothing against dick jokes. It's just funny when like you start to see these these racist dick shits talking about the timeless spiritual nature of these classic works, and like half of them are dick jokes.
Sense like DEI and
Of all the, this is my last question, Professor. Thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I hope it won't be our last. And I again, just like now the universities are criticizing the classics, and it's just like I can tell you that like advances in philosophy rely on critiques of past philosophy. The system that we live in now is the product of critical thinking, of looking at the way things were done in the past and critiquing them to try and find new and more interesting ways to do things, and sometimes more efficient ways if we're talking about, mechanical or engineering advances, etc. But like, critical thought is what makes improvement possible. What is, I think, revealing in this conversation, right? And one of the reasons I wanted to focus specifically on this Professor Jiang conversation is that pseudoscience kills critical thought because it acts as a thought-terminating cliche. And to exemplify exactly what I mean, I'm going to play for you a couple parts from Professor Jiang's channel now. Okay? And again, this is all, what does Tucker Carlson actually believe? So let's take a look. Number one, I submit to you all Professor Jiang's channel, which is titled Predictive History. Description. In his Foundation series, Isaac Asimov proposed the science of psychohistory will help humanity understand its past
predict its future, and control its present. This channel is dedicated to exploring if psychohistory is indeed possible. This channel seeks to answer the three following questions. What models, theories, and paradigms help us best understand world history? What does world history teach us about our current predicament? 3, how much of the future can be predicted? All right. And I just want to say from the jump, when he's talking about his predictive models, he's talking about basically this pseudoscientific idea that he ripped off from Isaac Asimov. That's it. That's it. So how exactly does it work? Let's listen to him explain it. Okay? Here we go. Here's his first episode, Secret History #1, How Power Works.
A structure that we can process called the phenomena.
Oh God. He completely missed the point of the Foundation series. The point was Harry Seldon was wrong in the end.
It doesn't matter. He's pushing those thought-terminating cliches. Of course he's wrong. Of course he missed the point. Like, that's... My entire point is everything about this misses the point by design.
Which are the things that appear to us.
All right. I'm going to jump ahead because I thought I had it teed up to the right moment. There we go.
The course. So there's past, there's present, and there's future. We'll be looking at all three this semester: the past, the present, and the future. We will be analyzing all three in order to construct a more objective reality for ourselves. We will not succeed, we will fail. But the process of trying will train our minds to think much more critically about the world. So let me explain how.
Yeah, I do also want to say, to Xendu's point, Professor Jiang is not actually a professor. He's basically fabricated this from whole cloth. He has exactly the same credential that I have, which is a BA in English literature. Although I guess I have an additional one on him because I have a minor in medieval history.
At present, we have geopolitics. We'll be studying
Oh no, he does teach, but he teaches high schoolers.
Politics. For example, why is there war in Ukraine? Why is there war in the Middle East? What happened? We'll be studying geopolitics. And we'll try to understand why this is happening. We'll try to formulate an analytical model of geopolitics. Okay, an analytical model. We will then use this analytical model to make predictions about the future. Why do we do this? Because these predictions will tell us if our analytical model is correct or not. Okay, does that make sense?
And what have you used that degree for? For being literate? Being literate and critical thinking are actually pretty key to what I do, and I learned a lot of that from my English degree.
Different from artificial intelligence. How do you know if your artificial intelligence, the model is correct or not? Well, you test it against reality. Okay? There's no difference between that artificial intelligence system and what we're trying to do here.
He sounds more like he has a BS in history.
Oh, he definitely has a BS in history.
And why are we doing this? Because if we're able to have an analytical model that makes correct predictions, then we can take all this and go back and analyze the past to reveal the secret history of the world. That is a project we are
basically
undertaking this semester.
Can we just get him not in front of the chalkboard? After this, he goes on to talk about how the Federal Reserve System is corrupt. He like for real. He starts talking about how centralized banking is corrupt and controlled, but we're not quite there yet. If you think, wait a minute, that sounds like the outline for a point down the road, you'd be correct for being on your guard. But we're not done yet here, okay? Because I want you all to look at this board. So his idea here is essentially, if you look at the world and understand geopolitics, then you create an analytical model that allows you to make predictions. And if those predictions are accurate to the future, then that means you can then use that analytical model to also predict the past. And that will reveal a secret history for you. Except that that's not how studying the past works. You don't use an analytical model to predict the past. You look at the evidence you have. You look at the accounts you have. You look at the actual facts that you have. Yeah, essentially what he's saying is that all of the evidence and all of the facts that we have from history are garbage. And in fact, what really matters is using that analytical model you developed to predict the future, is applying that to the past in order to find the real history of what happened. That's what he teaches in his secret history course with his predictive history channel. Okay? Yeah, we're getting back into like some premium like crack pipe politics shenanigans, right? And it gets worse, of course. Disprove the past. Yeah, I understand. Some of you might be confused about what exactly that might mean. So, you know what? I pulled up another one of his episodes to maybe more accurately convey to you guys what I mean when I say he's revealing the secret history. Okay? Let's take a quick look at his Roman anti-civilization episode, Secret History number 21.
See this situation, it's very similar. The Romans are in a very similar situation where they're being surrounded by enemies on all sides, right? So at this time, what should happen, theoretically, is they become energized. And the entire Roman army goes and fights the Carthaginians and defeats the Carthaginians. Okay, we have examples of that. We don't have an example of, in fact, an entire army in ancient times being surrounded and being slaughtered by the enemy. This is a very strange battle.
Also, Sake Tanuki, he's just China's less charismatic normal Rat Peterson. He is less charismatic than Jordan Peterson, it's true. He is just a normal Rat Peterson, it's true.
In fact, if you ask ChatGPT, which battles have used double...
Well, I mean, if ChatGPT says it, whew, now we're cooking. Development
strategy, basically, you have Battle of Canine, okay, we have that. But the next one is 1940 in World War II. Now, the difference, of course, is that by the time you hit the 1940s, you have machine guns, you have tanks. So if you start an enemy, you can destroy your enemy, but not in ancient times, okay? In fact, the closest parallel that we have is the Battle of Marathon. But some historians suggest, okay, so even historians disagree whether or not the Battle of Marathon was actually a double envelopment strategy. This makes no sense. This battle strategy makes no sense from a military perspective. Also, we can't find the damn place. You would think this is this huge battle, 50,000, 100,000 Romans are dead, there'd be a lot of bodies. We can't find the damn place, okay? Look, there's no archaeological evidence to prove the battle took place. We don't have any evidence. That's kind of strange, okay? Yeah, but maybe it's because of the weather, or, we don't know, okay? All right, guys, so, what's going on?
Also, just as an FYI, we do know where it took place. This is actually a picture of it. That... we know where it happened. He's just talking out of his ass. And when he says there's no evidence of it, there is evidence of it. Like, he's just wrong. He's just patently wrong about it. I don't know what to tell you guys other than he's just straight up inaccurate. Which, that's so strange that he would be wrong when he has such an accurate predictive model. But it gets worse.
Here, okay, so on YouTube, someone asked me, how do we know what history is true or not? Okay, now, you would think the answer is, you just ask historians whether it's true or not, and you know the answer. The problem is that every historian that you talk to tells you the Battle Canal must be historical fact. It must be, even though we don't have any evidence for it.
Hot take: conspiracy theorists shouldn't be teachers.
True. I think his audio might actually be better for this. Let me turn off the mono sound because it's bothering me.
So given that, how can we understand or figure out if it's true or not? Well, in this class, what I teach you is a new historical framework to understand history, okay? So this—
God.
The shoujo manga I am reading while listening to stream has a better grasp on history. And the Japanese girl isekai'd to the Hittites has been kidnapped by Ramses II to fake marry him to meet Nefertiti.
Oh, hell yeah, that sounds dope as hell. Keep us updated.
This is predictive history, and we ask ourselves, does—
more historically accurate than whatever Professor Jiang is selling you here.
the Battle of Canaan fit into a larger historical pattern, okay? Second question we ask is, does it make sense according to game theory? And the third question is, does religion explain the battle, okay? And when we do this, when we use this framework to understand the Battle of Canaan, our conclusion must be, it didn't happen, it was completely made up, okay? The Battle of Canaan did not happen. So why? Well, first of all, when we have—
Yeah, so basically, guys, I don't know how to tell you this, but he doesn't think Roman history is real. He just straight up doesn't think it's real. Like, you know how like a year or two ago we were making fun of like people on TikTok talking about how Rome is fake? He's basically that.
These great military generals like Hannibal Barca, they tend to become a king, okay? So think of Napoleon, or think of Julius Caesar. Hannibal Barca is the first general that we have that conquered all of Rome and decided, I'm gonna sit back and like retire for the next 50 years, okay? Never happened before. What?
That's very famously Cincinnatus, George Washington. Like, it fucking happens. Like, that's never happened before. Couldn't possibly ever happen again. Like, bitch, what are you talking about?
Then you go back to Carthage and claim the kingship, right? Okay, that's the first problem. Second problem is game theory, okay? So if you read Roman history, what they will tell you is that Hannibal, after the Battle of Canal, he was stuck in Italy without resources. Then the
This feels like somebody who played Fate, Stay Night, and the rest of the series, and thought it was historically accurate. Arthur, famous hot blonde lady.
Yeah. Yeah, and also that suspiciously cute cat boy.
question is, why don't you go to Carthage, conquer the place, and demand the resources he needs to win against Rome? Why is he just sitting back? Okay?
The kingship of Carthage, what the fuck is he talking about? That's the thing, guys. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. When I talk about this guy being a pseudoscientist and Tucker Carlson knowingly platforming this guy, Tucker Carlson is platforming this guy because this fits into Tucker Carlson's worldview. This constructs a world in which any inconvenient historical fact is actually fake because of, predictive history. Like, the pseudoscience deliberately muddies the waters that Tucker Carlson is seeking to foster. Right? That's not game theory. Yeah, he's also just wrong about basically everything.
Also remember, this is a guy who crossed the Alps. on his own initiative. The Carthaginians told him, don't start a war with Rome, Hannibal. And then Hannibal's like, nah, I'm going to go across the Alps. Thank you very much, okay? So this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And then from a religious perspective, how can we explain why Hannibal did what he did? And the Roman historians will tell you, oh, it's because his father lost against Rome. He wanted revenge on behalf of his father. That makes no sense, guys, okay? Usually when a Napoleon emerges, it's because he thinks he's a son of God. Think of Napoleon, think of Alexander the Great, think of Julius.
This is shit. Like, this is... His leaps are insane to me. His leaps just boggle my mind. There's nothing actually supporting these ideas. This is what happens when pattern recognition just completely... Like, okay. For those of you who are fellow Google debunkers... Milo Rossi put out a video like 24 hours ago or so talking about how people are really fucking weird about the pyramids, you know? That's just a theory, a game theory, indeed. Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. But Milo put out this video basically about conspiracy theorists and the pyramid in Antarctica. And essentially, guys, what we have here with the overwhelming number of conspiracy theories when it comes to, you know, aliens or whatever, it's pattern recognition gone awry. Like, that thing looks like something else. That thing looks like that thing. It must be aliens. Like, that's kind of what's happening here, too. Except that he's doing, like, a slightly more abstracted pattern recognition, and it's an insane way to construct any kind of worldview.
With Caesar, okay? They all have a messianic calling, a divine mission. All right? So from this, only conclusion can be, first of all, Battle of Cannae did not happen. There's no way it could have happened. The second thing is, you can also say that Hannibal Barca did not exist as a person, all right? But then this leads us to a really huge problem, which is, why would the Romans just make this stuff up? Why? Why would they say, we fought this battle and 100,000 of our men got killed by this Carthaginian general Hannibal, who's smarter than us, okay? Well, the reason why is this, Carthage, okay? That Carthage is at this time in history, about 200 BCE, the most beautiful, the most prosperous, the most cultured city in the world. And what did Romans do? They burned it to the ground and killed everyone, okay? That's just the Roman way. Now, this is a siege of Carthage that lasted many, many years in the Third Punic War. The Romans, if they don't like you, they will come and kill every one of you, okay? And that's what they did in Carthage. Now...
yeah, Rome famously just killed everyone that they ever encountered. No, it definitely didn't just expand the empire through subjugation.
There was this guy, Hannibal Lecter, a really great guy. I am losing brain cells, this guy awful.
Yeah, I also just, again, like, Carthage is made up, Hannibal Barca is made up. It's all made up, guys. It's all made up, except, you know, except some of these parts. These parts are real, but you know, the parts that are inconvenient to my narrative, they're all made up. All right. Now, I want you all to understand that this is not a guy who is pushing things without an agenda. And I'm going to throw this out there because I think it's a bit interesting here. But let's jump into just the opening few minutes of his last Secret History video, which is titled Secret History #end Pax Judaica.
So we come to the end of the course, and all roads lead to Jerusalem. So we're gonna take everything we've learned so far and combine it into a narrative about today and the future. So the grand thesis of this class is that secret societies control the world. And this is something you can never prove, okay? But let me propose a theory of how we can approach the truth.
Okay, class, secret societies control the world, and you can never prove it, but I have a theory. A game theory. I don't like this. Yeah, well, we don't actually, the good news is we don't actually have to watch the entire hour and 40-minute long lecture about this, because he gets to the point fairly quickly here.
The Jews Batman, it was always the Jews. These guys are always so unoriginal.
They are always unoriginal, but like, it's cause like, it's the classic for them. Tucker Carlson goes to the same well. You know, it's what binds this guy and Tucker Carlson's fascism, you know, and white supremacy.
Okay, theory of truth.
Yes, the Greater Israel Project is real.
If you have a theory or an idea or a narrative, and it does these three things, then it approaches the truth. The first is that it connects the past. Okay? So does it help us?
Wait, also you can read Polybius. He existed, he wrote, it survived, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? He literally, it just says, like, the Romans made it up so that they could seem like the good guys. Like, he just thinks anything inconvenient to his narrative about Rome is just the Romans made it up.
Put the past, things that we know that happened in the past, into a coherent story that we can understand. Okay, that's test number one. Test number two is it explains the present. Does it help us?
Oh, yeah, he doesn't care. He doesn't care that Polybius was Greek or whatever. It doesn't make sense. He doesn't have an argument. He doesn't have evidence. He's just like peddling freakish pseudoscience because it gets him views. You know, like this video has over 1 million views. His channel has like 2.3 million subscribers.
Better understand the world we live in. Okay, and the last and the most important is predicts the future. From this narrative, we should be able to make certain predictions about how events should develop. And if these events turn out to happen the way we predict, then we can be more sure that our theory of truth
The Romans
is
made
correct.
it all up. There is no Athens, there is no Atlantis, and there is no Queen of England.
Oh, I'm fairly certain this guy believes in Atlantis. I'm fairly certain. Not 100% sure, but I'm fairly certain.
Now, let's be extremely precise. Just because things...
I got a question. What is this guy talking about? He believes he has a secret method of understanding the present, which allows him to predict the future and the
I would just like to
past.
say great job everyone on the quiz, and reptilians rule the earth from an undercastle.
Indeed, King Kerplunk. And if you think it's really stupid to predict the past, then congratulations, you've achieved a basic level of critical thinking.
turn out the way that we predict doesn't necessarily mean that our theory is 100% correct, okay?
Now, just covering all my bases here. If I am wrong, it's because it's just a theory. It's just a theory. You don't understand. Look, guys, it's just a theory. When I'm right, it's because my analytical model and predictive model is incredible and powerful. And when I'm wrong, it's just a theory I have. Don't worry. This is why. This is how pseudoscientists, by the way, cover their asses.
Because it's really important to understand that correlation does not necessarily mean causation.
What the fuck happened to common sense? Actually, excellent question. And the answer is a lot of people like in the how do I put this? Learning is hard, right? Learning is difficult. It is a process. It is time consuming, etc. However, some flim-flam man coming along and telling you he has a model where you can just essentially imagine the future and the past and it becomes real, that's easy. Effectively, what it comes across is that, like, this guy's selling people a quick and easy way to feel powerful, to feel some sort of agency over their life, like they are, discovering hidden truths. It's why he calls it, the secret history, right? Like, oh, you see something no one else sees. And there is like an attractive value in that to a lot of people, especially people who are tired and overworked. And like, it's why people gravitate towards Alex Jones stuff, like there is a power in feeling like you have been let in on secret knowledge. And this basic attractive force is what is weaponized by both hucksters and fraudsters, as well as fascists and white supremacists, right? It's a thought-terminating cliche.
Funny how a guy who thought Romans weren't real is proclaiming himself an oracle.
Right? Essentially.
Okay? So that's a caveat. No matter how well we predict the future, it doesn't necessarily mean that our theory is 100% correct. But our theory gives us a model to...
Also, you guys are about to get hit with the what I believe is the core proposition that has made him popular in conspiracy and far-right circles.
Understand the past, the present, and the future. Okay? So, with very little evidence, I'm going to present to you a theory about how the world works.
With very little evidence, but don't worry, guys. It's a theory, and I have a very accurate predictive model, so you should definitely put some credence in what I say.
A story about how we got to where we are. And again, this is speculation. Some will call this conspiracy theory. And this is just meant to be a fun class. So take what I say with a grain of salt, okay? Ask good questions, doubt what I say, but what I'll show you is that this theory, even though it doesn't really make much sense and you may not believe it, it does help us.
It's all just jokes and fun, unless it's real.
Connect the past, explain the present, and predict the future, okay? All right, so without further ado, let's go into this theory. So you remember Jacob Frank, who founded the Sabbatean Frankist movement, okay? And he will convert to the Catholic religion.
Guys, I have no evidence, but this BS I made up says it's true, so money please.
Money please.
And he will encourage his followers to also follow him into the Catholic religion and also to infiltrate secret societies. One of his friends, one of his patrons, is Mayer Rothschild, who is founder, of course, of the Rothschild banking dynasty, which we discussed last class. He will introduce Jacob Frank to another person named Adam Weishaupt in Bavaria, okay, in present-day Germany. All right, now Adam Weishaupt, he is actually a former Jesuit, okay? So he's a member of the Catholic Church. He's also a Jew, okay? And again,
man, the way he said that is also incredibly sus.
We don't have any evidence that these three actually know each other, but this is a theory, all right? So let's assume they knew each other. What they will do
Wait, why did it pause?
together is create a new organization called the Illuminati. And this organization is what controls the world.
And I think that's about as much of this. We are 4.5 minutes into an hour and 39-minute long video, but I think we've already gotten to the point that I think is illuminating for our purposes here. This is what gets you on a Tucker Carlson show. That was 5 minutes? Yeah, that was only 4.5 minutes long. Yeah. So basically, it takes him 4.5 minutes in the final episode of Secret History to talk about how the Illuminati runs the world and the Jews run the Illuminati. And it's like not even like subtle. He just straight up says it. Right. And yeah, look, at some point I might do a deeper dive on Professor Jiang. But my point here is that, again, I just want to go back to the New York Times article that really started all of this. What does Tucker Carlson really believe? I went to Maine to find out. You don't gotta go to Maine, girl. You don't have to go to Maine. Like, you just go to his YouTube channel where he posts the things that he says and believes.
To the tone of "there's no laws against the Pokemon, it's the Jews, Batman, it's always the Jews."
For these people, yeah, it is. But like, conspiracy nonsense slop for conservatives. It's disgusting.
I wish my people were as powerful as they claim we are. We could actually change the world for the better.
It's like insane, obviously. And Tucker Carlson has set himself up as like, you know, just a freakish figure here, where he is peddling this conspiracy, and like blatantly anti-Semitic conspiracy, and mixing it with overt fascism, right? But you go to Tucker Carlson's channel here, right? And all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait. Tucker confronts biotech CEO for genetically altering the next generation. Russell Brand running for mayor. Look at Israel attacks of Jesus Christ, literally. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like, I'm going to direct you guys to this video from 3 days ago, where it's just titled "Exposing the Globalist Agenda to Destroy the Family, Sterilize Humanity, and How to Escape It." Now, it looks like he's interviewing a man here, but it doesn't say in the title who he's interviewing. So, let's take a quick look, shall we? After all, how else are we to know what he says and believes if we don't go to Maine to talk to him in person? So, this video, if we go down to the description here.
What if we bought Jack a whiteboard, chalkboard, and rent out a classroom for Jack to make her take to get more engagement and be bigger than Hassan?
That's what I need. That's the only thing holding me back. I need to get a whiteboard. It's true. So, this video is actually an interview with a man named Terry Schilling. Now, that's interesting. Wild that it's not in the title of the video. But who's Terry Schilling, you might ask? Terry Schilling is the guy who founded the American Principles Project, the APP. And if you have heard of this organization, it's likely that you heard about it because of its association with helping to draft up, the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025. What is the history of this organization? Well, basically it was founded in 2009 to oppose same-sex marriage and to spread the message that gays are bad. And they've been agitating against LGBTQ people ever since. Not only that, but they also, of course, are against abortion. They are against DEI programs and believe that immigration, of course, is acceptable, but also, has to be really curtailed. They also believe in returning to the gold standard and believe that pornography should be outlawed, etc., etc., etc. They also work to restrict voting rights. And you know what? Oddly enough, Here's just a small clip of you, for you guys, a blast from the past, if you will, courtesy of Media Matters, who clipped this interesting exchange between one Charles Kirk and Terry Schilling back in 2024, I want to say. Yeah, 2024. Here we go.
This guy should be boxing in Paris. Terry, your reaction.
It's pathetic, right? And this is what the lie of feminism has always been about, right? They told us that it was about equality for women and to elevate women. Charlie, you and I both know very well that it's always just been about tearing down men and removing them from society. Every goal of the feminist movement, ever since they got, the right to vote, after that, it all went downhill, right? They have done nothing but attack men, to the point where you have men right now saying that our job is not to protect our wives, not to protect our daughters, not to provide for them. What the hell is he talking about? What is he talking about? That is our main job
in our same-sex marriage.
Thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs, Sake Tanuki.
Our main reason for existence is to protect our families. But this is what the divide is, right? And I wouldn't expect a political movement like the leftists that we have in America that can't even understand that only women can have babies.
Ghost, oh wait, it's just Charlie Kirk. It's Charlie Kirk.
It is Charlie Kirk, indeed.
And that men and women are different and you can't change. These people are so screwed up on gender. Of course they don't think that men are responsible for protecting their wives and daughters. It's pathetic and it's disgusting. But I'll tell you what, Charlie, there's lots of ways that we need to protect our families. We need to protect them physically. We need to protect them economically. But we also need to protect them spiritually. But a lot of that runs through who's in power. Who is setting your laws in your country? Who is making the rules? You have to protect your family and all those other areas, but you also have to show up to the polls and make sure that you're protecting them with the people that we're electing in office. And that's what this big family program is really about.
I love it. I want you to plug the website again, but in closing here, a minute and a half remaining. Terry, what do you have to
God, his head is so big, I forgot.
Say to moms and dads that are families? They say, I don't want to vote for Trump because he's mean, or that he's upsetting, or that I don't like how he talks at rallies. What is your response to that when Christians or families will say that and they're willing to give the keys to the kingdom over to Kamala the communist?
Kamala the communist. My God. I don't know if you guys caught it in there, but he said, I'm just going to quote it back to you again, okay?
How does one spiritually protect their family? Shall I get some incense?
Yeah, you gotta find yourself a Casper, a friendly ghost, and get them to, exercise their Second Amendment ghost rights to, protect your ghost home. But he says in there, this is Terry Schilling now, quote, every goal of the feminist movement ever since they got, the right to vote, after that, it all went downhill, right? So, just so you know, this guy is also against women's right to vote. Like, he thinks it was a mistake to allow women to vote. God.
With that Edgar Allan Poe-sized head, how did he shoot low?
You guys are terrible. But also, let's see what some of what Terry Schilling has to say today. Maybe he's evolved. Maybe he's a different man now, in charge of the APP. Let's take a look.
Masculinity, it's more. Steady, responsible, self-sacrificing male leadership. In a word, fatherhood. Strong fathers build strong families, and strong families build strong nations, which amount to a strong civilization. Fathers Wanted is available right now for limited time only on tuckercarlson.com.
Oh, hell yeah. That'll fix it. We just need if we just have a good documentary about strong fathers, we'll get more strong fathers. Let's go. Let's go. The only thing between your man and him being a strong father is seeing the right documentary, okay, folks?
How do you keep fathers from not breaking? I've seen it many, many times where a father loses his job, he feels like a loser, and then he starts behaving like a loser. And then his wife and children are unimpressed. And so he becomes even less impressive and just like cycles out of life, either literally or just falls apart with booze or other assorted self-destructive activities.
Well, I think we're seeing more and more of that today.
I've seen it.
At an embarrassing level, actually. But
we have an embarrassing level of... I feel like that just honestly puts more pressure on men, if anything. You're falling apart. You're embarrassing yourselves.
Point of a system is what it produces.
Could they sit up? No, they're just ordinary men. Ordinary men can't sit up. That's impossible.
Not what it says it produces. And our system today is attacking men. I work all the time in DC. All we do is pass laws and get people elected to help protect the family. That's what we do. And you talk to people on Capitol Hill. You can't bring up all of the attacks on young boys in schools. You can't bring up the attacks on young men and how difficult it is because women have it worse.
Just so you guys know, as a feminist, feminists also fight for the rights of
yes,
men
they're disappointed
and boys.
with unimpressive people, clearly no moral failings.
So I'm interested to know what exactly he deems are attacks on men and boys. Because I have a feeling his idea of what constitutes an attack might be a bit different from what most other people would constitute as attacks.
Still, they say that?
Well, it's starting to change. No, it's absolutely starting to change. But you really can't. The irony is that there's a huge constituency with the American people on this. But when you go to Washington, D.C., the politicians don't want to hear about it. They definitely don't want to talk about it.
Is that true?
Now? Name 5 politicians
that are leading the charge.
Well, they used to say
that women were discriminated, girls are discriminated against in schools. Well, of course, women dominate schools completely from top to bottom. They graduate at a far higher rate at every level than boys do. They used to say, well, women are paid a percentage of the male wage. Well, women make more than men now, nationally adjusted, as you know. And
I don't believe that's true, just as an FYI.
So the data are in. This is not an argument we have to have. Boys are falling behind, not girls. And I just am amazed that people in DC won't admit that.
It's one of the last acceptable bigotries is against men. And it's because the news, politicians, everywhere.
Yeah, okay. The full time data shows that women earn 81 to 83% of men's earnings. The income gap has actually gotten bigger. In order to make the argument that Tucker Carlson is making, you have to be very cherry picky about the data.
In our culture, the movies, we just saw Paul Ehrlich just died, right? I was actually in the delivery room.
It was a lot of fun. Oh, actually?
I was in the delivery room with the 8th child.
Giving the finger to Paul Ehrlich when he passed? Yeah.
And
you explain who Paul Ehrlich was for those who don't know.
So Paul Ehrlich wrote this book in 1968 called The Population Bomb. And he basically said that the whole world was going to collapse if we didn't stop people from having kids. He was incredibly evil. China's one-child policies, he didn't go over and advise them, but they read his books. They used his course. He wanted to sterilize people forcibly. He wanted to have paid tax incentives for people that did sterilize themselves. He wanted to have limits on how many kids. He supported forcing people to get licenses before they could have children. Right? These are crazy ideas.
I mean, just as an FYI, the same reason that kind of motivates Tucker Carlson's pseudoscientific interests and thinking also motivated Paul Ehrlich. The idea of the population bomb is basically just an extrapolation of this idea that the Earth can only support so many people, and if we go over that limit, the civilization will collapse. It's just bullshit. It's the same kind of bullshit. My brain wanted to say Methuselah, which is not the same thing. Malthusianism is the concept I'm trying to elaborate on here. It's basically just taking that old concept and bringing it into a modern context. When, like, again, the idea that, like, we are close to, like, the load-bearing capacity of the Earth is just kind of bullshit.
That I don't know why they took off. But the irony about Paul Ehrlich is that he made all these predictions about devastation and chaos in the world if we didn't address the population bomb. None of them came true. Literally, none of his ideas came true. The only one that got close to coming true, actually, was he predicted that in the year 2000, that the UK would fall. That's like the closest he's gotten. The UK is falling, by the way.
But not because Britons are having too many kids.
No, it's the opposite. It's the opposite.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Thinking we'll run out of bread to feed ourselves is bullshit.
Yeah, we can take any load, even the ultimate load.
Not only can you take a load, you can take the ultimate load.
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. Also, like, again, Tucker Carlson goes mask off, you know, in a lot of these segments where he invites these far-right extremists, these fascists, onto his show. And, like, he's just like, well, you know, the UK is going to fall because not enough white people are having kids. Like, that's the point he's trying to make. The point he's trying to make is that, you know, foreigners, i.e., Black and brown people who live in the UK, are having more children, generally speaking, than the white people who live in the UK. And in their minds, that constitutes effectively an invasion and the fall of the UK. It's just rank racism. That's it.
But Paul Ehrlich was an atrocious man. But one of the things that he was very passionate about was his guidance for television and movies. If you depict a family, they should be small. No big families in movies.
What? How did Paul...
Also, the idea that, like, Hollywood was hanging on Paul Ehrlich's words... That's insane. That's not... No. Most people don't have, like, a bajillion kids. That, like, Hollywood is catering to the majority of people. I'm sorry, having 8 children is not the norm in America. If it was, more screenwriters would write stories with huge families in them.
Ehrlich have the right to advise filmmakers and TV producers on what their art should be.
Everyone was scared to death. They bought it hook, line, and sinker. And
never beard of cheaper by the dozen.
Never heard of cheaper by the dozen. Indeed.
It's not new, Tucker. It's all so old. The idea that people are pollution is so old. It's like kind of boring if you look throughout history.
That you sacrifice your children to the gods in order to become happy and prosperous. That's a pretty old concept.
Well, there's one group. I have a joke for you. I'll try it out anyway. Is 2 priests walk into a bar. One's a Jesuit, the other's a Dominican. They're debating about who the best order is in terms of Catholic priests. And the Jesuit says, well, we were founded by St. Ignatius of Loyola, and we're the most academic, we're the smartest, and we were founded to combat the Protestants. And the Dominican priest says, well, I think we have you beat. We were founded by St. Dominic, who founded us to destroy the Albigensians. Who are the Albigensians? When's the last time you've heard of an Albigensian? And
they're like the Houthis. They've never personally threatened me. No.
They want the Duggars full of thought. From 18 and counting to 21 years and counting.
Yeah. I was gonna make a crack about the Duggars, but then I forgot. Just like this guy's like hoping that they make like an 18 and counting Hollywood theatrical release. Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs, but my god, that was a terrible joke. The right is getting better at comedy. We better look out.
You would think so, because you haven't heard of them, but their ideas are everywhere. The Albigensians were a 12th century heretical cult of Christianity. They basically believed that the soul was perfect and pure, but that the body and the physical world were corrupted. And so they started punishing people for getting married. They started encouraging people not to have children. Like the worst thing, anything pleasurable. If you enjoyed good food, that was a sin for the Albigensians. If you had sex with your wife, that having a baby was like the biggest sin you could commit for the Albigensians, because
I bet they were against Marlboros and SUVs too.
100%.
I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing. I know these people. They're worried about climate.
Yes. But they thought the worst thing you could do is trap a pure soul into a corrupted body. Like, you're actually doing this. And those ideas are still here. I see Albigensians everywhere in our society. Their ideas have not died out. They've just taken different shapes. It's why these corporations are promoting abortion and egg freezing. It's why states like California will take children from their parents if the parents don't affirm their gender identity. The family precedes the state. The family is the original community. It's the original society.
That's right. Why would the state ever take a child away from a parent? It's not like neglect is a thing that might weigh in as a factor. It's not like, denying them necessary medical care might weigh in as a factor. Like, I'm sorry, but like, if a family is abusing their child, the state does in fact have a right to intervene to protect that child from abuse, from malnourishment, from mistreatment, from neglect. Like, the state has an obligation to intervene in those cases, and denying your kid like gender affirming care is a form of abuse. Like, I'm sorry, but also, like, what are the circumstances? You know what? Let's just take a look. Just if we were to give him more credence than he deserves.
I see Albigensians everywhere. They keep asking for more cowbell.
Sake Tanuki, I appreciate you. I wish I had the cowbell sound on the soundboard, but I don't. Here's one from 2024. One California father has become a household name in the anti-trans movement after claims his 5-year-old was taken away from him because he objected to the child being transgender. Now that an LA Times investigation has uncovered new details in the years-long custody dispute, including alleged abuse toward the mother of the child. Like, it's almost like additional things were happening rather than, exactly what is being claimed. Like, you wouldn't use pronouns right, so the state came and took away a child. Like, no, actually. I gotta be honest, guys. Like, this just doesn't happen in the way that, like, the far right likes to fearmonger about. And, like, in the instances where it does happen, like, the reason the state seems to be intervening is not due solely to, like, misgendering. Like, it seems like it is done because parents are abusing children in other ways. I was trying to find the LA Times article, like, just kind of cut off. I think it had like a video originally embedded in it, but it doesn't have one now. Very frustrating. Old internet websites.
There is no right to take children away from their parents unless there's actual serious abuse. But we see these ideas everywhere, and they've taken hold. And you've got obviously Thomas Malthus, who believed that people were pollution. Paul Ehrlich. These guys, their policies have been failures. They've caused misery and chaos and suffering, but they've taken hold. All of our elite institutions have been pushing these policies on us.
So all these ideas shapeshift. This is my read. All of these anti-human, anti-God ideas like manifest as some slightly different ideology depending on the period.
Yeah, it's anti-human to respect your child. It's anti-human to just treat your child with basic human dignity.
Whether it's the Albigensians or the Marxists or the Green Party, all of those.
Also, just as an FYI, the Albigensians, there was an entire Albigensian crusade. That's not a good thing. Like, arguing that the Crusades were justified and good is actually insane. And Tucker Carlson just nods along with that.
Look antique kind of now, especially even the climate people, we sort of gave up on that. In exchange for building data centers. So data centers are incompatible with green politics because they're such a massive energy draw. So you need all forms of electrical generation in order to power these data centers. But what's the point of the data centers? It's to create something called artificial intelligence, which
I don't think we need to hear this guy's thoughts on AI. God, I think we can be done with this.
Yeah, it's anti-human to * checks notes be a decent human person with empathy.
Yeah, no, it totally, for sure. But I just wanted to go through all of this because I want you guys to know that fundamentally what Tucker Carlson believes is relatively irrelevant. What he actually talks about, who he actually platforms, the ideas that he normalizes or gives more credence to, I think that's more interesting. And that's what is actually present in his content. When you go watch it, and you actually watch it with a critical mind and a critical eye, it turns out, hey, he has like these guests on who are constantly peddling theories about how the Jews are secretly running the world as the Illuminati, or talking about how there is an elaborate conspiracy to weaken America and the West by, making men miserable and, stealing the women away from the men, the real men, the men of the West. And the destruction of the family unit by dastardly, well-connected individuals in academia. Those same academics who are currently now pushing all institutions in our society to say that trans people are okay, actually. That the 0.1% of the country who are trans are the real threat, not, the billionaires. Yeah, ignore the plight of the Epstein class. Ignore the plight of the Epstein class. These billionaires who are predating on you and your loved ones. Ignore them and instead buy into all the conspiracy theories. Buy into all of the absolute garbage that is being peddled to distract you from the infinite number of ways you and your loved ones are being fleeced by multinational corporations. I don't know. Just kind of seems to me like you don't gotta go to Maine to spend the 2 hours putting together what Tucker Carlson believes when you know he's just going to lie repeatedly to your face. And all of this to say, the mainstream media has failed us spectacularly by trying to sane wash people like Tucker Carlson. And they're going to continue to do it. So I want y'all to be aware of that. I want you to be more critical. I want you to be engaging with stuff that is going to feed your curiosity and feed your mind and make you more critical.
The heir of the Swanson TV dinner fortune would know about abuse to children. Forcing anyone to eat one is pretty cruel and unusual.
It's true. It's true. Very true. Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. And our media ecosystem has failed us badly, and that is why we have Donald Trump in office right now. Our mainstream media is owned by billionaires. It is owned by incredibly wealthy and influential people. And all of them share a class interest in propping up a doddering old fool like Donald Trump, who's racist and bigoted and gets the clicks. And we need to move away from that world, because if we don't, it will kill us. So all of that being said, folks, if you got anything out of this incredibly long segment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Comments longer than 8 words really help in the algorithm. And please consider sharing this video around your online circles, because this was long and time-consuming to make, and I hope you got something out of it. I hope it's useful for you. And folks, the only way we combat this is by getting organized. We need to get organized. We need to decouple billionaire money from our media ecosystem. We need to make our world more egalitarian, more free, more democratic. That is the only way forward. And the only way we get that is by organizing and standing in solidarity with one another. No one gets thrown under the bus. So if you want to get started doing that, you don't know where to start, join your local Dems, join your local DSA. If you need help, we can do that here in this community. Join our Discord. Reach out to GamerG for help with DSA. Reach out to Dragonfly for help with your local Dems. We can get you started. Several people today have been talking about how they got started organizing and how it has really helped them feel more agency in our political system.
Remember me from a couple weeks ago? My tag parody of Trump did numbers and there's a bunch of MAGA dumbasses in my comments now, lol.
I don't. I'm sorry. I don't have a memory that good. But thank you for the $5 super chat. And I'm glad that your parody did great. Last but not least, folks, check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes. Also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. Go check it out. It is sexy. I'm wearing it right now, and it's really affirming and it fits. So go check it out. ImogeneOlivia.com. Link down in the description. And let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube and Swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat Jack.